Okay. All right. Welcome everybody to the Game of Zen podcast. How you doing today, Paul?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you, Scott?
Good. Thank you for joining me today. So, our first episode, we did an introduction of who we are and how we met, and we briefly touched on the Four Noble Truths. In today's episode, we're going to dig into those noble truths and explain how they fit together and how we work through them to get to the Eightfold Path. So, let's start with everybody's favorite subject, suffering. We all have it. We know it's there. When we examine it and we look at it, we're able to get past it. So let's talk, Paul, about the first noble truth and what it means and how do we apply it.
Okay, we might have lost like three-quarters of our listeners right there, but if you're still here, it's not all about suffering. In fact, I'm going to retranslate it. The first noble truth is usually oftentimes translated life is suffering. Okay, and that's just not quite, it's too much to the point, you could say. So I preferred, I'm going to just expand a little bit on that. He's really talking in this observation that the Buddha made, that we experience life in a certain way. Okay, not that it is intrinsically any certain way, but that we do tend to experience life in a certain way. And he used the word dukkha. That's the word that's translated as suffering. Dukkha is also translated, and I think better translated, as something like insufficiency. Okay, not enoughness. Okay, and some people translate it as being out of joint. So we experience life just almost moment to moment with a sense of insufficiency. So, what does that mean? It means that we're just not okay with what we have in our present moment experience. There's either something that we want that we don't have, there's something present that we don't like and we want it to go away, or that we're just not paying attention to something that actually is a part of our world, but we're kind of avoiding it. Okay, or we're just not aware of it. We should say it's not aware of it, so ignorance, like this. So these things are problems for us, ultimately. So we're experiencing at the basic level a not okayness that's manifesting in these types of ways. So that's the first noble truth, that life, we experience life in this not okayness. Okay. So did you want to riff on that, or should I go on to the
Uh,
second?
well, I just one thing I wanted to say is that the more that you understand that this is what's, and we'll get later to what causes it, but like just the fact that it exists,
Yeah.
that the not okayness is inherent in us, that's a relief right away.
Yeah.
Because we've been feeling some version of this since we were a child and we didn't have enough food or we didn't get to play with the right toys. And then later it's like, we didn't get the right girl or we didn't get the right job, and so when I look back at my life, that not okayness has always been there.
Yeah.
There's always something that I would want to have more of or better of, and I didn't kind of put it together that this was causing suffering. And I think once I started to realize that it's okay to have not okayness,
Yes.
that's okay. That's normal, actually. It's not, I thought maybe I was, but and learning how to deal with that has been a huge benefit to me.
It's so big, isn't it? There's that aha. It's like, oh my God, I'm doing this all the time. Yeah. And this isn't to say that we don't have needs. We absolutely have needs. We have needs for air, for food, for water, for connection, for love, all of that. We do have those needs. That's not what this is saying. This is saying that we're adding a layer to our experience, that we're creating suffering out of our not okayness. It's a separate layer. So it's not to deny our human needs, including relational needs, in any way. It's kind of what we're doing with our human experience. So that's where the second noble truth comes in, is that he really says, here's what's creating that sense of not okayness, of insufficiency. And the teachings, basically say that it's caused by attachment. All right, that's the word is translated as attachment, but I'll unpack it a little bit. Attachment is a certain relationship with things where you're grasping them in some way. Okay, it comes out of a really strong sense of, here's me. I've got a preference. I've got a really strong preference for the way I want things to be. And I want this, I don't want that, or I don't care about that. Those three things that I just mentioned a little bit ago, right? That's what attachment is. It's not that you really love someone or you feel really connected to something. That's beautiful. That's being beautifully human. It's beautiful to be, have a great loving relationship with someone, and even to need, emotional sustenance from them and need attention from them. Of course, that's great. It's great to have desires and aspirations for your business, even to make a lot of money or to serve a lot of people. That's not necessarily attachment. Those are just desires. Those are they may have some level of need associated with them, but those are all just great. It's how we deal with those, how strongly we hold on to our preferences about wanting those things, and what we do to ourselves to manipulate the world in order to get them or to push them away in the case of the things that we don't want. How we get distorted within ourselves in order to get what we want. So it really, in a way, it comes down to attachment. You could say it's about preferences.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, one of the deepest and oldest Zen teachings goes back to the 7th century AD in China. This poem is called the Trust in Faith Mind. And the whole thing is about just let go of your preferences, and then you find the way to enlightenment or unification. That's our core problem, is how strongly we hold on to our preferences. That's the source of our problems.
Yeah. And one thing that helped me a lot was that this happens to everybody. And there's really no escaping it. And sometimes, you're out there in the world and you're comparing yourself to someone else or someone else's business, or, and they have their own version of attachment and suffering. And, and what I've learned too is that the more that I can and deal with it myself, the more I could understand the other person, that what they're dealing with. And everybody's got the same set of concerns. It's just a different level of how you deal with it. And so one thing that we're hoping to get, our listeners, is the more that you learn about how we've applied it to our lives and the teachings, the more you could relieve it from yourself and people you care about.
Yeah.
And the more you can help other people in your life. And I think that, moving on to the second noble truth, really, this goes to really understanding what are causing those things. And so why don't we talk a little bit about some of the other things that cause our suffering in the second noble truth?
Um, well, the craving, the aversion, and the ignorance. Yeah,
Yeah.
when that comes in. So it's really tends to be a subconscious craving. What do you, something within your system needs something in order for you to be okay. So it could be approval, right? Approval from an authority figure, from a parent, maybe from a client, from a boss, right? So there's a craving for approval there. Now, when you don't get that approval, you suffer. Okay? Now, if you're fully conscious of that desire, not need, but that desire for approval, and then you don't get the approval, you feel bad, and then you just allow yourself to feel bad, that's not suffering, right? That's human life.
Right.
It feels bad, but that in the technical sense that I'm talking about how we create real suffering for ourselves with say craving and then not getting what we crave, that's where it comes in. When we're not aware with it, we feel bad, and then we're not okay with feeling bad. So we
Mm-hmm.
act out in order to, I don't know, lash out at the person who didn't give us approval, defend ourselves, try to change their opinion, storm off, quit, whatever the, break
Mm-hmm.
up, whatever the case may be. Those are all kind of distortive behaviors that come out of this, which then ultimately, through the law of karma, is going to create even more suffering.
Yeah.
As you kind
Yes.
of away, you get addicted to your mechanisms, your
Yeah.
strategies for feeling better. And
Yeah.
all of it could have been avoided if you just allowed yourself to feel bad.
Yeah.
You get the approval you wanted, and you just feel bad.
And then you move on from it. And I think I was relating to a lot of times when you teach me these things, I relate them to my life, but then I think of a business that I was involved in and the craving that was associated with it and the attachment and the, there's ups and downs, in every entrepreneur's life. And we're craving approval from our coworkers, our partners, our employees. We're also craving success, and we most of the time we don't have enough of it. There's most people are trying to get to a higher level of something, and this is something that I've struggled with for a long time. I've always wanted my businesses to be better and bigger and better, and sometimes it doesn't go that way. And at the end of the day, I'm like, well, this wasn't a great week for sales. I'm craving a bigger sales number, and that causes anxiety, causes suffering. So how do I, as an entrepreneur, how do I deal with the fact that it never seems like it's enough?
Yeah, it's a great question, Scott. So, right, never enough. Never enough. That's the first noble truth. Never enough. There's never enough success. And I think most people would say that. There's never enough. Even the very successful people. There was a study done, it was a while ago now, but I think it might have been repeated recently. And they asked people, how much money do you need in salary every year in order to really be happy? Like to be, this is what I need, right? And what do you think the answer was? This was done in the US. So,
How much salary? I'd say 150 a year.
okay. So the results of the study were that everybody, I don't know, 90%, 85% of respondents basically said a number which was twice what they were making at the moment.
Okay. Right. So no one's making enough.
No one's making enough, and it's quite clear. But if you doubled it, yeah,
Then it's enough.
good, good. Okay, so that shows you
Yeah.
how much of a mental phenomenon um, not enoughness is.
Yeah.
So now it becomes the inquiry. What is enough? What is enough? How much success? And I, I tend to feel the best way to work with that is to you can have goals around how much money you're making, how many clients you have, those types of metrics. But just kind of put those out there and just put them up there on the wall. That's okay. But now success is every step. It's every step of just doing your work and incrementally, putting your gift out there, showing up, building your business, whatever it might be. That's success is movement and growth. Success isn't necessarily those goals. The internal and incremental work has to be the basis for the external and the big goals. Always, it has to be inside, and it's the disconnect where it's, well, my goal is this much money, and now I've had a setback here in this moment, and so I'm I've created this association basically to say, well, this is not okay because I'm not gonna make this goals. But that's just an idea.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just in your head. You're basically just telling yourself a story about what you think is going to happen.
Yeah, and I think about sometimes how they talk about super wealthy people that are unhappy
Yeah.
because they just want to make more and more, and the guy around the corner has a bigger house than them. And then you find people that have a lot less money that are totally happy with their lives, and somehow they get by with less, and they find happiness with a lot less. So I think that no matter where you are in the success level, there's other ways to build happiness. That's one thing I've learned. I have certain goals and aspirations, but I have 24 hours a day to work on them, and I'm sleeping some of that time. So, I do what I can in each day, and I try and move things forward, but I never get to the finish line. Like today, we're going to end the day, and I'm going to have more emails that I should write back to, and I'm going to have other things that I wanted to do, but it's going to be the end of the day. And so, how do we take steps each day? And then maybe now we'll go to the third noble truth. How do we take concrete steps in our life and in our mind to get past some of these things?
Um, yeah. So the third noble truth is there's a way beyond suffering. Okay, there's a way beyond this persistent feeling of insufficiency. All right. So I'll just pick up where we're talking about. Say your business isn't going the way you want it to go, and you really want to be successful. It's totally okay to want to be successful, to want to make a lot of money. That's really great. The suffering you're creating is coming in when you're sort of misinterpreting what's happening as being some sort of um, uh, invalidation of what you're doing, or some sort of catastrophic setback, or it just it feels bad. You feel bad because you're not getting what you want. Okay, now if you just take every move in stride and move through it, you will continue on the path of success.
Mhm.
The record of every successful entrepreneur is one of repeated failures, before the big success. Most of
Yeah.
them, right? Very
Yes.
few have their big success right away. There's always failures. There's always mistakes. I mean, in some of these great wealthy success stories, they made a fortune and they lost it all before they made their second fortune, right? That's very common.
Mhm.
The key, the secret to their success is their ability to move through those perceived setbacks, failures, and mistakes, right? They're not taking those as being determinative, they're actually taking those as being part of the process. That's what you have to do. So roll with it. You didn't want this to happen? No, I didn't want to go bankrupt. Yeah, damn it. But hey, it's just a step on the road. What's going to come next? That's the internal shift that needs to happen, is how to deal with your own experience. How to deal that experience when things don't go the way you want them to go. That's the key. And that's where the Eightfold Path comes in, which is the fourth noble truth. But the third noble truth is that there is a way to
Mhm.
work with ourselves and our lives so that we're not in this perpetual vortex of insufficiency.
Yeah, I think, and I look back on my career too, in the early part of my career when I had some issues and I was struggling with some things, like I didn't have these coping, I don't know, coping mechanisms or skill sets or knowledge base. I was caught up in the I want to be more successful mode, and it's not going the way I want. And it caused suffering, and it definitely, I wasn't really dealing with it in the best way possible. Some of those things have happened again, but I'm now I have the ability to look past it, and also like to your point, I've learned something from it, and it wasn't, I learned something from everything good and bad that happens in my life. But and now that I'm learning how to get past this suffering and the attachment and the craving, then I'm moving faster to a better place.
Right.
My head's in a better place, and then my next day of work is better, and my interactions with people are better because I've been able to just get out of that monkey mind business of, oh my god, this wasn't good enough, I didn't sell enough, whatever. And then I'm like, well, tomorrow's a new day. I'm going to try again, and things are going to go better. And then I'm a happier guy, and people around me, I think, are, can feel that as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's indisputable that rejection feels bad, failure feels bad, um, a setback feels bad. It does. In fact, they've done studies and they show that the same parts of your brain are lit up when you are rejected, emotionally by someone, as being hit in the stomach with a fist, being punched in the stomach. The same neurons in the brain are activated. So it's literally, I mean, the expression, sticks and stones will hurt, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt.
Names will never hurt me.
Yeah, it's not true. It actually isn't true. It really isn't. Somebody could say
That's
something
true.
to you and it literally hurts. There's a physical pain. that we feel. They haven't made contact with your physical body. It doesn't matter. There's the energetic relationship that we have with people. There's a physical pain. So there's a physical pain when you lose money. Gamblers know this, right? I mean, we all know this. Right? There's a physical pain when we lose money, when we are unsuccessful, when we lose a client. Just like there is that spike of whatever it is, dopamine or pleasure, whatever it is, when we win at gambling, or we land the client, or we're successful in business, or that person that we were attracted to accepts our date proposition. These things are very physical feelings in the body. The problem is one way to avoid feeling bad feelings is that we intellectualize them. So we go to meaning. What does this mean? What does it mean? I need to understand. I need a framework to organize this really uncomfortable feeling I'm feeling. Right? So there it goes. Oh, well, this must mean my business sucks. I don't have anything to offer. You imagine how many times did James Joyce's Ulysses get rejected by publishers? All of these great works, 15, 20, 25 times rejected.
Yeah.
And writers, of course, who face this, they realize that if they took that rejection to mean it's a terrible work, nothing would ever get done. Nothing in humanity. But we're resilient like that. It's like babies. There's no baby in the history of the world that has said, oh man, this walking business, it's like too hard.
Right.
No, there's that drive in there. They're going to get up
Right.
and again, they're going to keel over, they're going to hit their heads, they're going to scrape their knees over and over and over again. And every single time they learn to walk, because they didn't
Yeah.
say, oh man, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I can't do this walking thing, right? So there is this inner drive that comes from our innocence, it comes from our humanity, it comes from our inspiration, our drive to be all that we can be. That's within us. But we also, especially as adults, we have this tendency to feel so strongly, this pain of rejection, and then to apply some meaning to it as a way to handle it and organize it within our system. And then we catastrophize and we make it mean more. But really, that's just an avoidance mechanism. If we just go into that feeling, allow ourselves to feel the pain of rejection, the disappointment, whatever it is, you can process through that in hours or minutes, whereas it might have taken weeks and months to get over a setback. You can do that in, like I said, minutes or hours, when you understand yourself in this way. And if you're willing to be with those feelings for a period of time, it's all it is. It's simple, but it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, and this is going to be a theme of a lot of what we're talking about, that it does apply to your personal life and your business. Those same principles that you talked about, because these things come up, in both ways, and they're similar in that my reaction to rejection or lack of approval or lack of success, it can happen in both personal life and business. And I need to, sometimes I'm doing better on one than the other, where I'm the person, my personal life, it's fine, but man, it was a tough day of business, or vice versa, right? And it's never, it's never going to be the perfect situation. So how do we deal with each individual thing that comes our way and get past it? And so the way we get past it is the Eightfold Path. And so right now, today, we're going to just talk a little bit about it. And then in the next episode, we're going to go deep. So Paul, why don't you give us an overview and how they all fit together?
Okay. Yeah, so the Eightfold Path is this kind of model or framework for living that the Buddha pointed out in his fourth noble truth as the way to live your life in a way that can help you do what we've been talking about, relieve suffering in this way. And there's 8 dimensions to the Eightfold Path, and they're basically, I'll just say them. So it's called right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right understanding, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So it's 8 ways of being with the mind and with the world, all right, that we can practice in order to kind of get right with ourselves, and then we get right with others, right? So I don't know if you want me to say more about it, but
So, well, I'll just add that what I find fascinating about this is I think, things come up in life, and I think about them in the framework of the Noble Eightfold Path, or like how do I take this situation and have right speech, and how do I take this situation and have right concentration, and so there's certain things that I think about, and I apply one of those truths to what the situation is, and I handle it better. And it could be, working at a basketball game. We talked about how my concentration got better over time, and then or it could be, dealing with my children and speech, or something like that. And so what I find so interesting about that is that the more that I learn about each one of those and how to apply it to my life, it does relieve the suffering. It does relieve the attachment. And so I think it's really interesting how we can apply it and really learn from it, and then it grows as a learning tool.
it really does. And one thing I'd love to bring out for people is how um, right speech, for example, or right action, oftentimes the best thing to say in a situation is nothing. Oftentimes the best thing to do in a situation is nothing. But our minds are usually wired in this, what do I got? What do I say? What do I do? In our business lives are like that, in our relationship lives are like that. It's always working on this, like, what's the problem and what do I do or say to fix it, right? But that's not what right speech and right action, that's not what these dimensions are. They're actually really revealing to you in a really like relieving way that, wow, you know what, sometimes just silence is perfect in this situation. Just chill, just chill and listen to the other person, you
Yeah.
know? Or it's like all of these machinations that I'm up at 3 a.m., calculating how I'm going to deal with this. It's like, no, you know what? Nothing. Just let this go for a day, a half a day, a week, whatever the thing, whatever it may be. It's one of the most relieving and empowering, I think, insights I've had in my Zen practice
Mhm.
is how less is so much more, so
Mhm.
much easier,
Yes.
so much more powerful and so much more connecting in so many situations.
I like the expression talk less, listen more. And I actually apply it in both both parts of my life, especially at work. I always have an opinion. I'm from Philadelphia. I have a lot of opinions, but sometimes I'd rather hear the other people's opinions, and I'll speak at the end or something like that. And I want to understand where they're coming from, and also how it applies to me and my relieving of the suffering. Like, how do I ingest what I'm learning from these folks, to make myself and my life better and theirs as well. So
Mhm.
I think this is going to be fun when we dig more into those one by one, Paul. But I think for now we're going to sign off. I do want to add, first of all, that Paul is an amazing teacher, and I can say that I've learned so much from him over the years. And Paul, how do people get in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, you can check out my website, zenatwork.org. It'll be in the show notes. And I'm also up on LinkedIn. I'm on YouTube. Got a YouTube channel up there, and you can connect with me on those ways as well.
I also really enjoy the newsletters. And when every time you send a newsletter, I think about another good topic for our podcast.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
we got plenty to talk about, and we're going to see you again soon. Just want to thank everybody for listening in, and feel free to comment and get in touch with us. Have a great day.
Been a pleasure, Scott.